Hi, thanks for taking the time to check this video out. Also, thank you to all the new subscribers we've gotten over the last week or so. I really appreciate that. Let's get into the video. So today I saw this Reddit post on the AMC stock subreddit, and first of all, the title grabbed me, Prepared to be Downvoted. So I'm familiar with being downvoted in this particular subreddit, and then as I read through it, I thought, I think this probably describes the way a lot of people feel. So this would be a good one to take a look at and maybe do a short video on. So here we are. Prepared to be downvoted. Been holding since late May, so I was in when the June run-up happened. I never sold as AMC declined, and I still haven't sold or ever played with any options. I've worked my way to a little over 1,200 shares at an average of a little over 47 bucks. So for some context, 1,200 shares at $47 is about 56 grand. I really have held out a lot of hope and been doing my best to keep a neutral stance over this whole situation in order to expect the worst and hope for the best. Lately, a lot of the posts that are, quote, pro-AMC influencers and posts throughout the internet, and not just Reddit, have been using a lot less technical analysis, or simply technical analysis that never really ends up doing us much good. In fact, the, quote, anti-AMC posters are the one that come in with some sort of analysis and or evidence that seems to not necessarily always be right, but seems to hold some sort of validation behind it, as we certainly aren't where we want to be. I guess I just feel at a loss. I still really want to believe in MOAS, but I feel like every positive DD that's put forth is relatively the same, whereas the anti-DD always has something to throw against us. If you guys want to downvote me, go ahead. I'm just asking for some help so I can understand better about everything going on. And this is by Reddit user Candid Geologist 541. So I really feel, so I'm just going to give a few of my thoughts on this post. 56 grand, that's a lot of money to be in one stock. I wonder what this person's total portfolio is. It kind of sounds like they might be a newish kind of investor. So this might be their whole portfolio. So if this is your whole portfolio, your portfolio P&L right now is like less than 50%, which is pretty depressing. They say they've held out a lot of hope. This is interesting here, hope. So I'm going to pull in this resource, Investment Psychology Explained by Martin J. Pring. It's a fantastic book. I recommend it to everybody. Sort of a classic when it comes to investing psychology, behavioral finance, and these things. So this section is about hope, which he calls the most subtle of mind traps. It's in a section called Knowing Yourself, and it's in a subsection called How to Be Objective. Okay, so these are the things that the apes tend to have problems with. Hope, the most subtle of mind traps. After prices have experienced a significant advance and then undergo a selling frenzy, the activity often leaves the unwary investor with a substantial loss. It is natural to hope that prices will return to their former levels, thereby presenting him with an opportunity to get out. This redeeming concept of hope is one of the great obstacles to clear thinking and maintenance of objectivity. Hope often becomes the primary influence in determining a future investment stance. Unfortunately, it can only warp or obscure sound judgment and will undoubtedly contribute to greater losses. In a sense, the victim of hope is mentally trying to make the market do something that he desires, rather than make an objective projection based on a solid appraisal of conditions. Hope is defined as the expectation of something desired. Sound investment and trading approaches are based not on desire, but on a rational assessment of how future conditions will affect prices. Whenever your position is underwater, you should step back and ask yourself whether the reason for the original purchase is still valid or not. Ask these questions. If all my money were in cash right now, would this investment or trade still make sense? Are the original reasons for making the purchase still valid? If the answers are positive, then stay with the position. If not, then the only justification is one based on hope. Whenever you can identify hope as the primary justification for holding a position, close it out immediately. This action will achieve two things. First, it will protect you from potentially serious loss. If your exposure is being rationalized on hope alone, you will be ignorant of any lurking dangers and will be that much more vulnerable to further price declines. Second, it is vital for you to regain some objectivity and free yourself from as many biases as possible. This can be achieved only by selling your position and making an attempt at a balanced assessment of your situation. So indeed, a lot of things ring true from this little section in terms of the situation that a lot of the AMC apes are in right now. The apes are mentally trying to make the market do something that they desire rather than make objective projections based on a solid appraisal of current conditions. That's clear. And it seems like many people are running on hope alone. So if this rang true for you, seek out this Investment Psychology Explained book. It actually came out in 1993. It's a classic. So getting back over to this post, I don't know why my highlights keep disappearing. So they say, I've really held out a lot of hope, just talked about, and been doing my best to keep a neutral stance over this whole situation in order to expect the worst and hope for the best. And I would argue that it's impossible for you to keep a neutral stance with this substantial of an unrealized loss. It's impossible to be neutral. It's probably impossible to be neutral with that large of a position, whether you're sitting on profit or loss, right? But at this stage in the game, I think the implication is that they had been doing their best to keep a neutral stance, but that neutral stance may not be in effect anymore. I mean, expecting the worst and hoping for the best, we just kind of talked about the hope part of this. I mean, if that's your philosophy, being down about 27 grand or whatever it is, if that doesn't qualify as the worst, then if you're willing to lose all of it, I'm not quite sure. But hoping for the best, okay, it's good to have hope. It is good to have hope, but in the market, it does not help you. So now we get into the section that really kind of caught my interest here. Lately, a lot of the posts that are pro-AMC influencers and posts, blah, 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 are using a lot less TA or simple TA that never really ends up doing as much good. Well, yeah, because I have some examples of that. AMC, further proof we are going to gap up Monday. All picks are indicators from 2 hour right before we gapped up out of the wedge. Last pick is now. Tell me they aren't exactly the same. Okay, we see this kind of stuff all the time. Just because some, and maybe they are just exactly the same. Maybe they are exactly the same, but that doesn't mean that it's going to happen exactly the same way, okay? I don't even know. I can't even really follow this. I don't know what days we're looking at here. This is a mess of a post. Like, this does not do anybody any good. It does nobody any good. This looks, I think, is this Webull too? I can't even tell what platform it is. I don't even know what day we're looking at. This is a mess. It's a total mess. And this guy thinks that he has saved the world here. He thinks he's figured it out, right? Well, no. So AMC did not gap up today. It did not gap up. So this kind of post is making predictions. It's, you know, he's got indicators, whatever. It's a mess. It just creates this hope and hopium. You're high on hope. This hypes it up. And then, of course, Sunday, they posted this late Saturday night, 4 in the morning. I'm not sure if that was Saturday for them still or Sunday, but AMC, this is why I'm seeing 47 Monday, 90 Tuesday, and squeeze Wednesday. Each time frame peaked before the purple line. Each squeeze day started on the blah, 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 you know, talking about Fibonacci retracements and such. You know, and again, we get this just unhelpful stuff, okay? 47. So, again, this was late Saturday night. And then, of course, today, 7 hours ago. Yeah, I got open wrong. I'll admit that. But don't talk shit too early. We're still on track to hit 47, motherfuckers. Well, that didn't happen either. So it's just, you know, and this is an example of this type of simple technical analysis, I think, that they're talking about here that never really ends up doing us much good. Yeah, this quote-unquote TA did no good. It was completely wrong. The stock closed at $23. Literally half of what they predicted. Okay, and this guy, you know, is got his diamond there, and he's, you know, he doesn't care. He got all of his likes and retweets and all that stuff, and you know, that's okay. And their bio says dumb engineer, all in AMC. So go figure. But this is unhelpful TA. This doesn't help anybody, right? But then the other half of this, in fact, the anti-AMC posters are the one that come in with some sort of analysis and or evidence that seems to not necessarily always be right, but seems to hold some sort of validation behind it, okay? So we have some of that too, right? So we have one of the big things that the apes have been hyping, and indeed Aron hyped it, which is questionable, but this 90% business. The retail investors own 90% of the float. So if you go to what he actually said, this is how he quote unquote gets away with saying this, because technically, okay, here's what he said. If you exclude index funds who have no choice but to own and hold AMC shares, individual retail investors would seem to own more than 90% of our officially issued 516 million shares as of today. Now, this statement is saying two different things. If you exclude index funds, okay, that's a big exclusion. And then he's saying individual retail investors would seem to own more than 90% of our officially issued 516 million shares. Well, it can't be 90% of 516 million if you are excluding index funds. It just can't be. That's not, and that's not what he meant. That's not what he meant, but that's how the apes are interpreting it. They just hear 90% of the float, and they assume that means 90% of 516 million, because he kind of said it in a misleading way. But he says, if you exclude index funds, okay, and we can look on Fidelity here and get some ownership data, and we can see that institutional stock and mutual fund ownership totals basically 35% of the float, insiders 6.2, and then that leaves about 54% of the float available for individual retail investors to own. So yeah, it's about 55. And that's really just from working backwards from, okay, institutional stock owners have filed forms with the SEC. So have mutual funds. So have insiders. So individual retail investors, we don't have to report our positions. So it's really a deductive process. And that's what's left. Okay, that's what's left. So you own about 50 to 60% of the float. 50 to 60%. And we see about 26% or so of the float represented here in the top 10 institutional holdings. So, of course, the top being Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street. These large institutions collectively here own about a quarter of the float or so, let's say, right? So that's kind of a lot. So again, that leaves about 55% of the float. Now, how many times have you seen people on Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, anywhere online hyping this 90% number? It's always used as a bullet point. It's used as a justification, but it's not correct, okay? This is objectivity. This is letting go of a bias. This is seeking evidence-based information rather than repeating something that you may know, just like the candid geologist knows. On some level, this person understands that there's some validation behind a lot of the, quote, what they call anti-AMC posters. Now, I have a problem with anti-AMC poster as a moniker. I'm not anti-AMC. I'm not anti-AMC at all. I don't want people to sell the stock. I'm not telling people to sell. I'm not telling people to buy. I'm just simply looking at the information that's put out and making a determination on, okay, is this backed up by fact? If so, where are the facts? Let's look at it. Let's evaluate it. And let's put our stamp of approval on it. And then on the flip side, is this substantiated by fact? No, we can't find any facts that confirm this. In fact, we might even find information that actively discredits it. So let's bring that out to light and let's make that determination and let's put our red X on it. So that's the point here. That's not anti-AMC. That's not anti-AMC. It's not anti-retail investors. It's not, pro-hedge fund or pro-Citadel. It's pro-fact. It's pro-truth, okay? So the reality is here that the MOAS narrative, the MOAS DD is severely flawed and fundamentally flawed, okay? And we've talked about that a lot on the channel. You can look at our past videos. If you have specific questions, you feel free to ask those in the comments or join my Telegram group. The link to that chat is in the description. Feel free to join and we'd be happy to have you. We're not really anti-AMC. We're anti-misinformation. We're anti-grifters, charlatans, all of the other YouTubers who tell you that this massive squeeze is coming, and here are the reasons why, and one of those reasons is you own 90% of the float. Well, that's not true, okay? Just like Martin Pring says in his book, the apes are victims of hope. They're mentally trying to make the market do something that they desire rather than make objective projections based on a solid appraisal of conditions. And that is exactly what's happening here. And it does warp an obscure sound judgment, and it has led undoubtedly to greater losses. It has, and it will continue to do so because the market doesn't care about hope. The market cares about, is this stock accurately priced for the future? What is the future value of this stock? And let's discount it back to today. That's how stock prices work. In terms of a squeeze, MOAS, the one thing I'll say is this: whatever investors think is going to happen in the market, and this is a general principle, obviously, It doesn't apply 100% of the time. But the bigger the rumor or the more widely held a belief is in the market, the chances of that actually coming to fruition diminish. They actually diminish. Because the more an expectation is set up, the more people who latch onto a narrative. Latching onto a narrative, such as this, tends to attract uninformed investors. They don't do true due diligence. They don't do their research. They tend to believe things that aren't true. They follow rumors and they throw their money in without really being sure of what they're getting themselves into. And the market has a way of not rewarding that. Let's put it that way. The market has a way of taking advantage of that. Is it manipulation? I don't know. Is it illegal? No. You made a bad investment. That's not illegal. It's a free market in that you are free to invest in whatever you want. But there's no guarantee that you will make money. There are no guarantees in the stock market. In fact, I would say the guarantee is almost that if you think you know what is going to happen, there's almost a guarantee that that won't happen. Not always, but a lot of the time. And that's why a lot of us tend to take a contrarian stance. What the herd, what the masses have latched onto, I want to look at the opposite of that, because I know that when tons of people rush into one thing, it tends to attract uninformed investors. Hype is uninformed. Herd trading is uninformed. A lot of people may get crushed. I want to look at the other side of that. And it may be sound, it may not be sound, but just because everyone else is doing something, that doesn't make it right, doesn't make it correct, doesn't make it a good idea. So that's important to keep in mind, very important to keep in mind. But the market has a way of not rewarding, and put another way, the market has a way of rewarding people who take the hard stance, people who don't go with the easy, low-hanging fruit. If somebody tells you you're going to be rich and all you have to do is buy this stock and you end up investing $57,000 into it, I mean, it's kind of a greater fool theory, really. It's kind of a greater fool theory, because how many people have done this? And then we find out that Citadel made record profits last year. I mean, 2 and 2 still equal 4, guys. This is not that hard. This is a classic pump and dump. I mean, if you didn't know that before, you know, people are waking up to it now. More and more people are waking up to this, which in our eyes is good. No, not because we're shorting the stock. We've been trading AMC on both sides of the option chain for months now. So it's not about that. It's about correcting the record, standing up for truth, and evidence-based thinking, which is really the point of this channel. And moving on to the last part here, I still really want to believe in MOAS, but I feel like every positive DD that's put forth is relatively the same. Yeah, that's definitely true. It is, because there's not much going on. It never did what it did last June again. Never did. And that's what everybody wants to happen. Remember what I said, when everybody expects something to happen, is that likely to happen? Generally, no. The market is very creative in figuring out. That's priced into the stock, actually. That's priced in. Those rumors, those opinions, if they're widely held and widely known, those are priced into the stock. So they're taking into account the fact that you expect this to happen. All the positive DD, and that's a clue right there. Every positive DD. Well, DD shouldn't be positive or negative. It should just be the truth. If it's true DD, if it's due diligence, that's why a lot of this crap that's on Reddit, the official, quote unquote, official narrative, it's garbage, because it's super bullish only. It's never incorporated anything outside of the narrative. It's never been updated to include new information. It's just a bullish bias, which is not DD. That's not DD. And the anti-DD, what they call anti-DD, it has something to throw against us, them, the apes, because you have people who have a growth mindset. The apes have a fixed mindset. They believe that they know the DD is done. All you have to do is X, Y, and Z, actually X and Y, buy and hold, right? And that's it. And they don't want to go beyond that, because it's scary out there where I won't get rich. But the reality is you have to have a growth mindset. You have to have a growth mindset. And I'll put a link in the description to a great video, the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And it's been really influential on me. But I see this playing out right here. And if you had a growth mindset, you wouldn't interpret it as something being thrown against you. You would evaluate it for what it is, and if it's true, you would incorporate it into your body of knowledge. And that's really what you need to do. It doesn't matter who it's coming from or what, if they have a short position or if they have a long position or what. None of that matters. What's the information? Is it true or not? Okay. And I commend them for asking for help so they can understand what's going on. The problem is this is the kind of a late time to be doing that, like when you're down so much. But the positive way to look at this is a learning experience. This is a learning experience. It might be an expensive education for a lot of people. It might be. Undoubtedly, it will be and is. At that price, really should learn a lot. The reality is there are not a lot of people going outside of the narrative, especially here on YouTube. It's better on Twitter. We have a lot of people on Twitter who are challenging this and are taking the time, actually, in the face of extreme resistance, to try to educate people, to try to help people understand. But there is a lot of hate. There is a lot of rejection. A lot of people just aren't ready for it yet. But a lot of people are, and more are becoming, because they're realizing that, the same old DD that you keep getting from the AMC pumpers, it's not getting you to where you want to be. And here's the kicker. Here's the reality of it. There's no way to get rich quick. You will not get rich quickly with little effort. It happens very rarely, so rarely that it's like winning the lottery. That's why you have to have a growth mindset to learn skills that will enable you to grow your wealth and your net worth, and to make smart decisions. And look at this highlighted thing up here. Make smart decisions that preserves your capital. The notion that you will beat Wall Street and that they will transfer their wealth to you, it's really, it's, what can I say? It's a narrative that was made by and for uninformed investors. This is your chance to rise above that and to say, yes, I believed this narrative. Maybe part of me still does or wants to, but I've moved on. I've grown out of that. That's what needs to happen. That's what needs to happen. There are an infinite number of ways to make money in the market every day. So if you have any questions about resources that might be helpful, whether it's stocks, options, trading, long-term investing, or what have you, feel free to put those in the comments or join the Telegram finance chat, and we'll see what we can get you connected with. But that's why we're here. We're here to help, to try to move people beyond this narrative that is certainly keeping people stuck in a rut of losing money, of feeling bad about themselves, about the market. It doesn't have to be like that. It really doesn't. Thanks for checking out the video. If you're still watching it, I really appreciate it. If you found this to be useful in any way and you feel so inclined, please hit the like button so that more people can discover my content. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And once again, join the Telegram finance chat. That link's in the description. Follow me on Twitter @ScottyFinance. Leave a comment. Check out some of my other videos. And I'll catch you in the next one.